Things like the buddy programs that we run at a primary level with our grade sixes, and give them all the responsibility of virtually help run the school. You've got monitors for this, and you've got school captains, and you've got house captains, and you do develop the sense of belonging and being responsible, because they're the they're the top of the food chain. And then they go into the secondary setting, and all of a sudden that's all taken away from them. And I think that definitely has to be the reason why that drop happens so drastically.
Well, we're going to find that out. If I can get to only one secondary school to bite the bullet and to say, okay, we're going to look at our intake, we're going to set up a few days of this rights responsibility stuff at the beginning of the year, like a startup program, a proper startup. We're going to put our signs up, we're going to train teachers to speak to them. And we have got schools doing this. If we can get this continuing, we'll know. Now, I have got schools where a few years ago, just one day sort of, and then follow-ups, said things like, well, we've got a system, it's not exactly what you said, but we've certainly changed the language a bit, and we've dropped our referrals out of class by 22% in a year, and one school 50% in a year. Why? Because the only person who talked to them when they were sent out was a teacher. They were sent to reception, not to another teacher, not a senior teacher, just a reception, placed in the back of another class. No one spoke to them, and the teacher caught them up later and had a chat. And in 50% of the referrals just stopped happening because the kids weren't getting anything out of being sent out. They were actually feeling guilty because the teacher spoke with them, made them feel really quite guilty, you know. What you did was unfair type of guilty. So time in class when they started doing it, they said, come on, you said you understood. And you're not doing it, and it doesn't make sense to me, you know, you'll have to explain it to me again because you don't get it. And that sort of stuff. And so it'll be very curious, I'm very curious to see how much variance you really do carry, what comes out of your mouth, and the structures you set up. But they're problematic data. That's what I think most schools are like at the moment. Sorry, you're going to say something.
I wonder if there's any relationship with brain development theory, because where the dips are, it's the time when the brain goes through rapid pruning of connections that aren't used very often. So those connections aren't being reinforced through possibly programs like you're mentioning, Australia, like you're mentioning, that they are stopped used and then the brain prunes them, and so they're no longer actually there.
I'm not sure, but say moral development theory would say by 12, which is what, year 6, grade 6, they are capable of understanding other and impact on other. So at that level you think they'd be certainly very comfortable with the idea that you'll behave. But teachers don't give that message. Teachers give the message in most secondary schools that I'm the one in charge. I will look after you. At most I'll be benevolent, but I'm the one in charge. And I'm your friend too, but I'm the boss. And basically, I'll make sure you do the right thing. You don't have to worry too much about doing the right thing. I'll make sure you do. And so that's why class size and all this stuff is such an issue. And teachers are so exhausted too, because they're carrying this huge burden of the whole class. And I don't know if that culture is going to change easily. See, I'm the only one who knows about physics, that's for sure. Well, that's not true either, really. But it's partly true. I think it's true because I want it to be true. But constructivists would say that's not true at all. They know as much physics as I do, but it's in a different form. But there's this belief that everything's got to come through the teacher. So I don't know if you're going to change it. It's going to be really interesting because it's got to change if this is going to change, I think. Now, things like service learning, like you're saying, working with the community and all that sort of thing, they've got to help because it makes people other-oriented. But I can imagine a whole curriculum secondary on rights, you know. Initially rights in the school, then, see in some of the schools there, they've got these rights up in the yard. The right to be safe is plastered on the yard in a picture form, but it's out there in the yard, as is your responsibility to make sure other people behave responsibly. So they've got these laminated and shoved out in the yard. So a teacher on yard duty can say to a kid, come on, don't you get it, you know. If you see two kids fighting, tell somebody. You don't have to get yourself beaten up by going to them, but in one school I went to, by the way, primary, they were taught what to do in the yard. They were taught, that's what primaries do. They're overt. They taught them how to behave in the yard to be communally responsible. They said to the kids, you are to go to the kids, you are to try and get their attention, you are to say people have to be safe. If you continue, I've got to tell a teacher. But don't touch them. And they taught them to do that. You never do that in a secondary, you never even think of it really. I wouldn't. I teach physics, you know. It's got nothing to do with me, really. So that's part of what we're trying to deal with, I think. What's also interesting is these days, these are year 9. If you think of a year 9, I took only the kids who misbehaved, they said only a little or never. These are the good, so-called good kids, right? They see themselves as good. And then I looked at whether they encourage other people to do the right thing. Now in China, mostly like them, the majority, a little, very much, mostly not like them. So on average, the majority of the good kids in China would encourage the others to do the right thing, they say. But the fact you've got a distribution means you're getting something by way of an answer that might make, it's not just a stock answer. Now it's starting to move to the right, meaning that the majority of the kids now are not going to encourage the kids to do the right thing. And in Australia, much the same. So the majority of our good kids say that they're not real, and it makes sense because they may not even be encouraged to or permitted to. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know how many of you have a system where your children feel that they have the right and responsibility and will be backed by you if they try and encourage people to do the right thing. So they feel it's their obligation to go shh on their table. Now, I've been in a primary classrooms where on every table, every one of these tables would have, for the week, one person whose job it was to be communally responsible. They were being trained to be communally responsible. I thought, what a clever idea. Can't do any harm, I don't think. In a positive way, not negative so much, but more positive by assisting. So yeah, I know. So they're the data we've got to contend with. Now I'm going to show you some other research. But if I ask you this, I think we need the background. What's your proportion? What do you reckon? Who says nearly all? Who's got that to go back to? Who's teaching VCAL? Okay. Most alternative schools. Most. Some. Hardly any. None. We want that job. I'm dying to know why. I'll come and ask you later. Okay, so could be a good year, or could be just, huh?
Year 12 biology.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, year 12, anything practically. So, okay, so there's the data from Australia, from about 500 teachers, about what you said. In other words, it's not such a big deal. It's not as big a deal as people like to make out. And if I asked you what were they doing, what would you say? What are they doing, these kids that you're having trouble with? Actually, on your table, generate a list of behaviours that are misbehaviours in your set. Come on, it won't take long. Just generate a list and we'll play with them all the way through the 4 days.